So, I'm going to be doing some reading here. When I was in university, I was very concerned for a long time about the question, what if the things that I do are used for evil purposes? Now, I was in art school, so it might seem kind of silly that, I would worry about something like that. It's not like I was trained to become an engineer. I was going to end up working on nuclear bombs. At best, I was going to be making ads to maybe, sell hammers to people who were going to build a deck or something. I mean, that's as good as it got. But nevertheless, that question stayed with me for a long time. And over time, I eventually decided that I was worrying a lot. Anything I did, anything any of us do, can be used for good or it can be used for evil. And it was simply up to me to skew what I did towards good. So fast forward to today. Turns out communications became a much bigger thing than anyone was expecting. When I went to school, there was no World Wide Web. The internet was message boards and email. It was mostly just something that was in universities and research institutions. When I made my first marketing piece for a client, it was delivered on a floppy disk, and we actually had to include instructions as to how you were supposed to move your mouse around on screen to click on the buttons to get information. That's how new all this stuff was, and that's how old I am. And now, here we are, right? When I went to school, I was at a turning point. It was an interesting time. We were simultaneously learning the old methods of graphic design and printing, how to put together communications using lead type that had been sort of the state of the art for the previous couple of hundred years, and also to use those to deliver those same messages using a Macintosh computer, which we would then print it out and it would happen a lot more quickly than sticking together things with lead type. And even back then, as we were at that kind of a crux, the question was, are we going to be replaced by computers? Oops. Ah, man. My typeface has got all screwed up. That's okay, we'll go forward. Obviously, we're not going to be replaced by computers because... or maybe I would be because I'm the one who designed that. But people are still asking this question with generative AI, and this is kind of where the start of this particular talk came from as I was talking with who. Because there is that question happening right now, certainly in art schools with you can type something in and say, give me a picture of blah, 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 and boom, there it is. And everywhere else as well. So if we were talking about this 35 years ago and I still have a job, I think we'll probably still be talking about it in 35 years and you're all going to still have jobs, in my opinion. Now, after I graduated, I quickly moved into the world of digital media, and I was a human-computer interface designer. This led me to establishing my first few companies. We delivered things on CD-ROM and floppy disks. Again, this was before the internet made things more efficient, but eventually my business partner was really interested in how these new digital tools could be used to make better TV shows. And so we birthed an animation company called Kaleidoscope. And at Kaleidoscope, our big innovation at the time was that we took a program called Future Splash Animator, which was an application for producing these really cheesy web animations. By this point, the web had become a thing. But the web animations were terrible. But we were able to look a little bit further with that and realize that we could, if we used it in a different way, actually use it to produce animated TV shows that had the same kind of quality as something you'd see from Warner Brothers for a fraction of the cost. Now at the time, anyone who wanted to make an animated TV show, what you did is you did the writing, designing, and the directing in Canada, and then you sent out storyboards to the other side of the world where hundreds of people in sweatshops would do all of the in-between frames, hand-drawn, and then they'd send it back to you, and you'd go back and forth. And keep in mind, the type of communication you have now with the internet was not a thing, so most of the communication was done by fax, and that was horrible. Using our new process, we were able to do it all in one building, downtown Halifax, 60 people. If we had questions or direction, we could just walk downstairs and talk with all of the animators who we had there. And so we saved time and money. We got the same or better quality product, and it opened my eyes to the fact that the available tools that you have can be used to an outsized effect if you're willing to look at them in a different way. That says, how will our tools be repurposed? It's all written down on the thing. It looked so good when I designed it, you know? Anyway. So using this one simple trick, we grew Kaleidoscope into an internationally recognized company in the TV world, and we ran it successfully for 14 years. Then we got burned out and bored, and we closed it down. So after Kaleidoscope, I retired for a while to work on a passion project of mine, which was interactive television, which I thought was going to be the next big thing. And for me, the idea that I had was I wanted to find a way that could integrate the TV viewing experience seamlessly with over-the-top content. So again, I think most of you probably here still remember television as opposed to Netflix. And you'd have your shows, and then you'd have blocks of 4 minutes every 7 minutes. That would get in the way and be really annoying. So what I wanted to do is, in those commercial breaks, find a way to put something else on screen, something entertaining, find new short form content. So what I did, and I didn't realize it at the time, but this is what I did, was to design a rudimentary sort of computer vision system. And what it would do is it would take the computer would watch the screen, your TV feed, would break the screen up into quadrants, and then it would assign each of those quadrants a set of numbers that determined whether, sort of what was going on in that block at any given time. Then what it would do is it would compare all of those numbers to other sets of numbers that happened before, in the seconds before, as it was watching this show. And if the numbers changed a little bit, you were probably still watching the same scene. If they changed a fair amount, you could probably switch to a different scene. And if there was a really big change, that meant that it had flipped to a commercial, and those changes were logged and saved to another table, which over time, as we refined the process, let us detect with actually really good accuracy whether you were watching a TV show, whether the computer was watching a TV show or watching a commercial. So the process behind it was analyze the data, figure out what works and keep it, throw out the data that doesn't achieve the goal, and then just keep repeating as you get closer and closer to the optimal result. So I had my test computer watching television for months, and over time, the prototype, we got to about 80% accuracy, which was pretty good. So what would happen is, as it was watching TV, as soon as it would snap to a commercial, it would put your TV feed in a little picture-in-picture box, and then on the main screen, you could watch a YouTube video or some kind of website or something else like that. And then I would take over a little tiny bit at the bottom, and I'd show a banner ad, and that's how I was supposed to make my money. Anyway, that didn't work. So if we fast forward another few years, I was then working with a company, and we were developing a robotic game with a little robot that he was a kind of a son of a bitch, and the idea was that for all the people who were standing around or sitting around the table, he'd be able to actually roll up to you, see your face, and insult you, which sounds like an awesome game. I don't know why that didn't end up working. But in order to do this, we were working with what was at that point a brand new technology called TensorFlow. And with TensorFlow, what we were doing was feeding these large data sets in to train it autonomously in identifying real world items like a chair, a banana, an apple, or a face. And the idea was that we wanted it to start to recognize the difference between my face and your face and your face, so that he would be able to tailor his insults not based on what you look like, but he'd remember you, and if you said such and such, then he'd be like, hey, didn't you say that to me before? And then he'd go over, you can let her talk to me that way? That sort of thing. So it was a lot of fun. But it was pretty amazing with this TensorFlow technology, because it got really good. Like this is just something that was running on like a very small processor, something even lighter than a cell phone, and it was getting these high degrees of accuracy as to what these things were that it was recognizing. But again, what I found was it was just using the exact same process that I'd sort of established before in that early system that I built, which was analyze the data, figure out what works and keep it, throw out what doesn't achieve the goal, repeat, and get closer to the optimal result. And then you just optimize, optimize, optimize. And the models that got better and better at their goal were kept. The models that didn't were deleted. So it's a completely Darwinian process. And it was happening on the scale of hours and days instead of generations, as it does with us meat machines. So at that point, what we were doing was finding a way for the computers to refine with better and better accuracy, get to their goals so that they could get a reliable, repeatable result every time. And as they got faster and shared learning between millions of machines, I started to wonder, when machines understand, what? Oh man, this is an older, I kept sending new updated PowerPoint files, and this is an older one. Anyway, if the machines understand us more than we understand machines, what's going to happen then? So at that point, I had quit. Speaking of which, I had quit social media cold turkey because it was turning me into an asshole. The algorithms were feeding me all the best snippets of my friends' lives, and I'm ashamed to say it was making me jealous when I measured my own life against theirs, at least the ones that were on screen. But even worse is that by this time, the algorithms had figured out that filling my feed with rage bait was the best way to keep me scrolling and clicking and keep me online for hours, fuming over one or another topic that I wanted to rail against because it was unjust. And then waiting for all of the likes from the people who I hoped were thinking like I did, of course. The algorithms understood the context of what would glue me to the site, and they served me up larger and larger helpings of it, which is not healthy to anybody, and it addicted me to accruing numbers next to the thumbs up icons, which in turn kept nudging me to become more rigid in these beliefs so that I can continue getting that sweet, sweet validation. Finally, it dawned on me, though, that after all this time of me programming machines to do my bidding, this goddamn website was programming me to do its bidding, which had the end goal of spending all this time scrolling and rage clicking so it could sell me ads for video games. And then I started looking around and started to realize how this kind of directive from the algorithms, which is to keep people looking at ads, was starting to leak out into society and changing in some fundamental ways our relationship with the social contract. So it turns out that the majority of Western populations tend to skew towards social openness, tolerance for differences, multiculturalism, and all the things that here in Canada we wouldn't be overly surprised about. And that's a good thing. However, it is possible that through these systems we may have unintentionally created too much of a good thing. And what I've observed in some cases in the last number of years, that we've got some of the loudest bullhorns taking over the public square in opposition to one another, this sort of coarsening of public discourse, and in some cases reticence and even fear of individuals to say anything that might be interpreted as offensive to the crowd. I wonder the degree to which these things have been amplified by the algorithms that are constantly looking to optimize their returns, find the mean denominator, throw out the non-essential data, and then start over, with the goal of purifying and reinforcing the majority opinion and cowing the rest of us into silence and conformity, skewing the result closer and closer to this binary, all in the ultimate service, not really of anything good or just in the service of showing us the maximum number of advertisements. And so, is that innovation? There we go. So yeah, has our quest for this perfect system, is that going to throw the baby out with the bathwater? And we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. He's so grumpy. He spent way too much time on social media. So that takes me back to my initial question. Will my work be used for evil? And at the start of it, it seemed like such a trivial question to think that a job making ads might lead to societal upheaval, but here we are. So what's my personal takeaway? So I've decided to do what the advice that I was giving people way back at the start. Bought a hammer, built a deck, and I invite people over to sit together in real life away from the filters and the division and the optimization, to enjoy the day, have a barbecue, maybe have a messy, inefficient, very human conversation about what's actually important to each of us. And maybe, just maybe, we'll all come away from the day feeling a little bit happier. And I think that's an innovation.